to Major General W. Key Sherman, commanding United States forces in Georgia. Your letter of yesterday's date, borne by James N. Ball, James N. Crew, citizens of Atlanta, is received. You say therein, I deem it to be to the interest of the United States that the citizens now residing in Atlanta should remove. I do not consider that I have any alternative in this matter. I therefore accept your proposition to declare a truce of 2 days, or such time as may be necessary to accomplish the purpose mentioned, and shall render all assistance in my power to expedite the transportation of citizens in this direction. I suggest that a staff officer be appointed by you to superintend the removal from the city to Rough and Ready, while I appoint a like officer to control their removal farther south. That a guard of 100 men be sent by either party, as you propose, to maintain order at that place, and that the removal begin on Monday next. And now, sir, permit me to say that the unprecedented measure you propose transcends in studied and ingenious cruelty all acts ever before brought to my attention in the dark history of war. In the name of God and humanity, I protest, believing that you will find you are expelling from their homes and firesides the wives and children of a brave people. I am, General, very respectfully, your obedient servant, J.B. Hood,
Commanding Army of Tennessee. General, I have the honor to acknowledge the receipt of your letter of this date at the hands of Messrs. Ball and Crew, consenting to the arrangements I had proposed to facilitate the removal south of the people of Atlanta who prefer to go in that direction. I enclose you a copy of my orders, which will, I am satisfied, accomplish my purpose perfectly. You style the measure proposed unprecedented, and appeal to the dark history of war for a parallel, as an act of studied and ingenious cruelty. It is not unprecedented, for General Johnston himself very wisely and properly removed the families all the way from Dalton down, and I see no reason why Atlanta should be excepted. Nor is it necessary to appeal to the dark history of war when recent and modern examples are so handy. You yourself bird houses along your parapet, and I have seen today 50 houses that you have rendered uninhabitable, because they have stood in the way of your forts and men. You fended Atlanta on a line so close to town that every cannon shot and many musket balls from our line of investment that had overshot their mark went into the habitations of women and children. General Hardee did the same at Janesboro, and General Johnston did the same last summer at Jackson, Mississippi. I have not accused you of heartless cruelty, but merely instanced these cases of very recent occurrence, and could go on and enumerate hundreds of others, and challenge any fair man to judge which of us has the heart of pity for the families of a brave people. I say that it is kindness to these families of Atlanta to remove them now at once from the scenes that women and children should not be exposed to, and the brave people should scorn to commit their wives and children to the rude barbarians who thus, as you say, violate the laws of war, as illustrated in the dark pages of its history. In the name of common sense, I ask you not to appeal to a just God in such a sacrilegious manner. You, who in the midst of peace and prosperity have plunged a nation into war, dark and cruel war, who dared and badgered us to battle, insulted our flag, seized our arsenal and forts that were left in the honorable custody of a peaceful ordnance sergeant, and seized and made prisoners of war the very garrison sent to protect your people against Negroes and Indians. Long before any overt act was committed by the, to you, hateful Lincoln, you tried to force Kentucky and Missouri into rebellion in spite of themselves, falsified the vote of Louisiana, turned loose your pirates to plunder unarmed ships, expelled Union families by thousands, burned their homes, and declared, by an act of your Congress, the confiscation of all debts due Northern men, for goods had and received. Talk thus to Marines, but not to me, who have seen these things, and who will this day make as much sacrifice for the peace and honor of the South as the best-born Southern among you. If we must be enemies, let us be men, and fight it out as we propose to do, and not deal in such hypocritical appeals to God and humanity. God will judge us in due time, and he will pronounce whether it be more humane to fight with a town full of women and the families of a brave people at our backs, or to remove them in time to places of safety among their own friends and people. I very respectfully, your obedient servant, W.T. Sherman.
To Major General W.T. Sherman, commanding Military Division of the Mississippi. I have the honor to acknowledge that the receipt of your letter on the 9th instance, with its enclosure in reference to the women, children, and others whom you have thought proper to expel from their homes in the city of Atlanta. Had you seen proper to let the matter rest there, I would gladly have allowed your letter to close this correspondence, and without your expressing in it words, would have been willing to believe that while the interests of the United States, in your opinion, compelled you to an act of barbarous cruelty, you regretted the necessity, and we would have dropped the subject, but you have chosen to indulge in statements which I feel compelled to notice, at least so far as to signify my dissent, and not allow silence in regard to them to be construed as acquiescence. I see nothing in your communication which induces me to modify the language of condemnation with which I characterize your order. It but strengthens me in my opinion that it stands preeminent in the dark history of war for studied and ingenious cruelty. Your original order was stripped of all pretenses. You announced the edict for the sole reason that it was to the interest of the United States. This alone you offered to us and the civilized world as an all-sufficient reason for disregarding the laws of God and man. You order into exile the whole population of a city, drive men, women, and children from their homes at the point of the bayonet, under the plea that is in the interest of your government and on the claim that is an act of kindness to these families of Atlanta. You issue a sweeping edict covering all the inhabitants of a city and add insult to the injury heaped upon the defenseless by assuming that you have done them a kindness. And because I characterize what you call a kindness as being real cruelty, you presume it to sit in judgment between me and my God, and you decide that my earnest prayer to the Almighty Father to save our women and children from what you call kindness is a sacrilegious, hypocritical appeal. You came into our country with your army, avowedly for the purpose of subjugating free white men, women, and children, and not only intend to rule over them, but you make Negroes your allies and desire to place over us an inferior race, which we have raised from barbarism to its present position, which is the highest ever attained by that race in any country in all time. I must, therefore, decline to accept your statements in reference to your kindness toward the people of Atlanta and your willingness to sacrifice anything for the peace and honor of the South, and refuse to be governed by your decision in regard to matters between myself, my country, and my God. You say, let us fight it out like men. To this, my reply is, for myself, and I believe all the true men, and women and children in my country, we will fight you to the death. Better die 1,000 deaths than submit to live under you or your government and your Negro allies. Having answered the points forced upon me by your letter of the 9th of September, I close this correspondence with you and notwithstanding your comments upon my appeal to God in the cause of humanity, I again humbly and reverently invoke his almighty aid in defense of justice and right. Respectfully, your obedient servant, J.B. Hood.
To General J.B. Hood, Commanding Army of Tennessee. Yours of September 12th is received and has been carefully perused. I agree with you that this discussion by two soldiers is out of place and profitless, but you must admit that you began the controversy by characterizing an official act of mine in unfair and improper terms. I reiterate my former answer into the only new matter contained in your rejoinder ad. We have no Negro allies in this army. Not a single Negro soldier left Chattanooga with this army or is with it now. I was not bound by the laws of war to give notice to the shelling of Atlanta, a fortified town with magazines, arsenals, foundries, and public stores. You were bound to take notice. See the books. This is the conclusion of our correspondence, which I did not begin, can terminate with satisfaction. I am, with respect, your obedient servant, W. T. Sherman.